Hi, I'm Danny Boyd, and the day is February 14th, 1991. You've never seen Jonathan Demme's The Silence of the Lambs. You don't know that in a staggering 13 months, it'll become one of just 3 films in history to win the top 5 Oscars at the Academy Awards. As a matter of fact, you don't know anything, except what the friend who's dragged you down to your local AMC to see it has told you. It's a scary movie about a serial killer named Hannibal Lecter who eats people, and this other guy who makes human bodysuits out of his victims. Fun. But now imagine you arrive and the concession line is a bit long. You rush into the theater 2 minutes into the film, and you see this. A woman running in the woods. But remember, scary movie, right? So maybe you fill in a few details of your own. Because how many times have you seen this exact shot in a horror movie? Or what about this shot of someone trying desperately to open up their car door at night to make their escape from an impending threat? On their surface, these are tropes, and from them are born preconceptions about certain images linked with singular contexts within a genre, when in reality, Jodie Foster's Clarice Starling is actually completing an obstacle course at an FBI training facility outside of Quantico. She's actually investigating a murder and breaking into an old car to find evidence. These shots aren't meant to trick you. Their context within The Silence of the Lambs is perfectly clear, but director Jonathan Demme has put them in for a reason, and in their own small way, they represent everything brilliant about this movie. The Silence of the Lambs asks us to forget everything we've seen before, everything we thought we knew, about the genre, about its characters, about what it means to be an Oscar contender. Don't measure this film against any of that.
Read Marcus Aurelius. Of each particular thing, ask, what is it in itself? What is its nature?
Now, I won't harp on as to whether The Silence of the Lambs is really a horror movie or whether it should be classified as psychological thriller, but on whatever shelf you put it, the fact is, before 1992, no movie as horrific had ever won the Oscar for Best Picture, let alone swept for Best Actress, Best Actor, Best Director, and Best Screenplay. And why not? Jonathan Demme's film has all the makings of an esteemed Oscar-pleasing Hollywood production, minus the genre.
You see a lot, Doctor?
Jodie Foster's performance is a masterclass in naturalism. Her character's fears, strengths, insecurities, responses to her environment are each played out reactively and on instinct. Clarice Starling abandons the tropey preconceptions of women in the genre in place of someone real, someone motivated not by plot or archetype, but by her immediate circumstances and her past traumas. Someone endowed with the resolve to overcome obstacles and to later help others in the film who can't.
Now then, tell me, what did Miggs say to you? Multiple Miggs in the next cell. He hissed at you. What did he say?
But where Foster is remarkably understated, and her Clarice remarkably human, Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter is a different story completely. Hopkins' deliveries are clinically precise, spoken in a voice that, according to him, was 1/3 Katharine Hepburn, 1/3 Truman Capote, and 1/3 Stanley Kubrick's HAL 9000.
Hello, Dave.
Good evening, Clarice.
Hannibal as a character is driven not by his own emotions or humanity, but by a fascination for and constant study of the emotions of others. Hopkins' physicality is at the same time inviting and predatory, almost reptilian, fiercely calculated, as though every word Hopkins speaks, every motion he makes, is performed by deliberate cognitive volition, not as a reaction, and not by instinct.
Anthrax Island. That was an especially nice touch, Clarice. Yours?
You can't quite get a firm read on Hannibal because, well, he's too busy reading you. When asked about the character of Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs screenwriter Ted Talley once said, "The more you explain him, the less he is. I don't want to know that somebody hurt his puppy when he was 8 years old. I don't want him to be conventionally motivated. Less is more." And Talley wasn't kidding either. Across the film's 118-minute runtime, Anthony Hopkins is on screen for just 16 of them, one of the shortest Best Actor Oscar wins of all time. It's an unprecedented performance that some critics have even suggested could have very well unbalanced the movie had it been reveled in for any longer. But the genius of Hannibal from a screenwriting perspective is how his presence in The Silence of the Lambs manages to spill over those 16 minutes. Lecter himself is preceded by his own mythologized reputation. The first scene in Hannibal's cell may be when Clarice first meets him, but it isn't the scene that we're first introduced to him.
Sit down.
This is
Yes, sir.
Jack Crawford's office.
I remember you from my seminar at UVA.
5 minutes into the movie, where Demme and Talley give us a deliberately suggestive understanding
The psychiatrist Hannibal Lecter.
of what this character has done,
Hannibal the cannibal.
what makes him dangerous,
Believe me, you don't want Hannibal Lecter inside your head.
and what he is.
And what is that?
Oh, he's a monster.
It's just enough to form an image, but not enough to fill it in with the full truth.
He's past the others. The last cell.
Each inmate that Starling passes on the way to Hannibal's cell is more maniacal and frenetic than the last. By all accounts, Hannibal should exceed them all. But he doesn't. Hannibal Lecter is calm and collected, standing at attention in a neat, form-fitting jumpsuit. A Hopkins idea, by the way. And it isn't that Hopkins or his portrayal of Hannibal undermines anything that's been said about him so far. After all, he has killed people and eaten them. Rather, it's that the character defines for itself the nature of the monster in a horror movie.
What is its nature?
Through expression, through physicality, a great actor can convey self-possession, discomfort, curiosity, nervousness, intimidation, fear, or subtle combinations of each. But as immensely powerful as the human face is in communicating, the language of physical expression is still a primitive one. One of the great boons of a novel is the inherent ability it has to devote space to internal thought, insight into the way external actions and words impact the emotional psyches of a character. One of Ted Talley and Jonathan Demme's greatest challenges when making The Silence of the Lambs, and in turn one of their greatest successes, was finding a way to paint Clarice Starling's internal experiences onto the screen. In particular, her experience as a woman in a male-dominated workplace. The power of eyes and the human gaze completely pervade The Silence of the Lambs. Through Demme's use of a subjective camera, much of Lambs is presented to its audience directly through Starling's eyes, and we see firsthand the way Clarice is viewed by the men around her, as either an object of desire or one of contempt. But Demme doesn't want you to just witness these objectifications, these preconceptions, like some bystander. Characters speak and glare directly into the camera. Directly at Starling. Directly at us. Lecter's gaze pierces a bit deeper than the rest, though. Like a viper, Hopkins never blinks, except at the most deliberate moments, when doing so feels almost hypnotic. We can actually track the moment Lecter has begun to creep inside Starling's head by tracking Demme and cinematographer Tak Fujimoto's camera work, when things transition from conventional over-the-shoulder shots to Demme's signature POVs.
Closer.
This motif ultimately comes to a head at the film's climax, though, with the omniscient eyes of Buffalo Bill, a man able to view Clarice without restraint, social or otherwise, rendering Clarice not only emotionally, but now physically powerless. Trapped under the gaze of a man she can't even see. It's an expertly conceived cinematic and narrative through-line, and one that can be truly terrifying. Earlier, I mentioned that The Silence of the Lambs won at the Oscars a staggering 13 months after it was released. That's because most Best Picture winners throughout history have been released after August, so that they might still be remembered come award season. But not this movie. The Silence of the Lambs won on its own merits, and forced the Academy in 1992 to look past what they thought they knew about what a prestigious Hollywood film should look like. Most genre films face an uphill climb to Oscar recognition, often undervalued and underrepresented at the Academy Awards. Maybe that's because the Oscars don't ask each one what is it in itself, measuring each instead against a preconception of a genre that simply doesn't fit inside their particular mold. Every so often something pushes through, or maybe is let through, but Jonathan Demme's The Silence of the Lambs is just one piece of evidence that great cinema, great performances, themes, and world-class filmmaking is not tied to genre. It's tied only to the brilliant people who tell the story that they want to tell. Yeah. I'm Danny Boyd. Thank you so much for watching.